I learned my parents secretly secured my brother a house, yet withheld help when my daughter needed surgery. She's adopted, my father declared. Not true kin, son, honestly, my mother added. Last night, I sat across from them at dinner. What I uttered next ripped the family apart forever. You ever had one of those moments where everything you thought you knew about your family just shattered into a million pieces? For me, it was the night I found out my parents had secretly bought my brother a house, while simultaneously whispering that my own daughter, their granddaughter, wasn't fully family. What the hell do you even say to something like that? My name's Mark. I'm 36, a taxi driver in a city that's always got road construction and endless debates about the best pizza. I work nights mostly, fewer tourists, way more stories. My cab is my office, stocked with strong coffee, quarters for meters, and phone chargers for every kind of phone out there, because tips, man, they come in all shapes and sizes. I'm the older son, always been the steady one, the reliable one who could be trusted with a list. My brother, Evan, he's 30. He's the golden child, you know? Easy laugh, big dreams. Allergic to early mornings and anything that requires long explanations. Mom calls him our sunshine. Dad calls him our hope. I married Anna when I was 26. We've got a small 2-bedroom apartment above a pharmacy. Our daughter, Lily, she's 8 now. We adopted her when she was just 3 weeks old. She's got this tiny dimple in her left cheek and a loud opinion about socks. She calls every dog sir, even the clearly feminine ones. When I pull up to her school in my cab and she sees me, she just flies towards me, her backpack bouncing like it's trying to take off. Taxi work, it teaches you patience. You listen. You don't correct. You just drive. You get people where they need to go, even when they give you the absolute worst directions. That's pretty much how I handled my family, too. Let them talk. Nod. Take their exits for them. Then, last winter, Lily's cardiologist said the quiet part out loud. Surgery. Within a year. He didn't dramatize it. He explained it like a weather forecast. Drew a simple heart on the back of a billing sheet, circled the part that needed fixing. I folded that paper like it was delicate glass. Anna reached for my arm under the table, her hand shaking. We drove home in utter silence, the radio off. I didn't tell my parents that day. It was too raw. I told them a week later, when they dropped off a box of canning jars Mom found for soup season. They sat at our tiny kitchen table, complimenting the curtains. I took a deep breath and just said it. Lily will need surgery this year. Mom blinked fast. Dad put his hand on the box of jars, like he might just pick them up and leave. We'll pray, Mom said. Dad echoed. We will. I actually thought for a second that was the first stone in a wall of support. God, I was wrong. But that part comes later. Tonight's the scene that changed everything. A Sunday dinner at my parents' house. Roast chicken, those green beans Mom always overcooks. Dad's special mashed potatoes stirred with a wooden spoon no one else is allowed to touch. Evan, naturally, was late. Mom had the news on mute, the anchor's mouth moving silently, like he was telling secrets. I brought a salad, because we were told to bring something fresh. Anna set Lily up with crayons at the end of the table. Lily drew a taxi with wings. Super cab, she declared. Evan finally walks in, 30 minutes late, carrying a paper bag from a bakery, already spinning a story about traffic. Kisses Mom's cheek. Gives Dad a half hug that looked like a handshake that got lost. Ruffles Lily's hair. How's my favorite lady? Lily, quick as a whip, tells him. I'm drawing you a ticket for speeding. He roared with laughter, like it was the funniest thing he'd ever heard. We ate. The conversation was soft, shallow. Work. Neighbors. The old man down the street who paints his mailbox every month. My heart was pounding, waiting for someone, anyone, to ask about Lily's appointment last week. No one did. I'm used to making the first move in that house, so I did. Her oxygen levels are holding, I said, trying to sound casual. The specialist is optimistic. Surgery window is late summer. Mom nodded, sipping her water like she was auditioning for a commercial. Dad grunted. Hospitals are thieves. Like that was the same as empathy. Evan chimed in. Summer's rough for me, man. Busy season. He doesn't have a job that has seasons. He has projects that have moods. I started to say something about schedules, but Mom cut me off, her voice bright, almost forced. Speaking of homes, Evan, tell them about the place. My fork stopped halfway to my mouth. What place? Evan grinned, a little shy, a little smug. It's nothing yet. Just looking. Dad couldn't hold it in. Our boy found a cute bungalow near the lake. 2 bedrooms, big yard. Needs work, sure, but the bones are good. Mom put down her glass. We want him settled. He's been unsettled far too long. She looked at me then, with that look she usually reserves for a misaligned picture frame. You know how it is. I felt a cold knot in my stomach. How? What is? She just ignored me and passed the potatoes. Lily leaned over her drawing. Can Super Cab land on the roof? Anna replied. Only if it's reinforced, sweetie. I watched my parents watching Evan. It was the look of people placing a crown on a head, convincing themselves it wasn't heavy. I didn't ask more questions. I wasn't ready for the answers. We finished dinner, cleared plates. Mom washed, I dried. She said, You really should think about moving closer to us. We could help more. We're fine. I said flatly. You always say that. She replied. On the way out, Dad handed me an envelope addressed to him and Mom. Since you're going past the post office, he said. It felt light. I tucked it into my jacket. We buckled Lily in. Anna whispered, You okay? I lied. Sure. At a red light, I remembered the envelope. I figured it was a coupon book or a church flyer. I ripped it open. It wasn't. It was an insurance binder. New property address, one I didn't recognize. Policyholder, the Bennett Family Trust. Primary resident, Evan Bennett. The light turned green. Someone honked. I didn't move. For a second, the whole city just went quiet in that way it only does inside your head. Anna put her hand on my arm. Mark? I swallowed hard. I could almost hear the old rolls of silverware at the dinner table. And then, the sentence I didn't want to hear, the one I didn't want to repeat, showed up anyway. When I asked them later, my father would say, She's adopted. My mother would add, Not fully family, son, if we're being honest. And that was it. That was the first trigger. Not the money. The sorting. Last night I sat across from them at dinner again. And I said something I had never said in that house before. The sound it made is still ringing in my ears. I'll tell you what I said. But first, you need to understand how we got here. I was 12 when I learned that being older meant being responsible for other people's mistakes. Evan broke a neighbor's window. I gave up all my lawn mowing money to keep Dad from dealing with the paperwork. Mom said, You're a good brother. Evan just said, Thanks, man, and disappeared to play video games. At 16, I got my license and became everyone's chauffeur, not just for errands, but for excuses. Could you swing by and pick up Evan? He got stuck. Stuck meant bored. At 19, I bought a used Corolla with cash I'd saved since freshman year. Evan called it our car, and borrowed it so often I started hiding the keys inside socks. Mom said, Don't be petty. I fell into taxi driving after a restless semester of community college, drowning in a stack of bills that couldn't wait for me to figure out who I was. What I liked about the job. Start meter and meter. Clear lines. People get in with a need. You meet it, you get paid. Not always fairly, but honestly. The city taught me routes the map didn't show. How lights actually cycle. Which alleys are safe. Which bars spit out the loudest liars at 2 a.m. I met Anna at 5:40 a.m. on a February sidewalk. She was late for an opening shift at the bakery. She had a box of croissants that weren't quite right and a frown that was. I got her there before the ovens beeped. She tipped me in pastries and a phone number. We built a life out of early mornings and second chances. Her parents lived 3 time zones away. Mine lived 15 minutes from our apartment, and they think that's a moral claim. We decided to adopt after 2 years of trying, 2 years of doctors saying maybe, and we don't know. The home study felt like an audit. Every drawer, every answer, every story examined. We passed because we told the truth, and because we're boring in the best ways. Lily arrived and turned boring into bright. She hates blueberries unless they're in pancakes. She sings to the vacuum. She loves maps. She'll sit in the back of the cab with my old atlas and trace lines like she's planning a heist. Mom said, "She's sweet." And then, later, in the kitchen, when she thought Anna couldn't hear, "It's just different." Dad nodded into his coffee. "Blood is blood." I cut in. "Family is work." Mom frowned. "Don't be dramatic." The heart murmur came during a routine check. The cardiologist wrote the diagnosis in clear letters. He didn't flinch when Anna cried. He said, "This is common and reparable." Common sounded like a lie. Reparable sounded like a map. We followed it. Appointments, scans, EKGs that looked like seismographs of a quiet earthquake. Money shifted from something we watched to something we chased. Insurance, man, it's a game where they change the rules mid-hand. I learned new words: deductible, pre-authorization, out-of-pocket maximum. I started using a binder with tabs, like a paralegal. We cut luxuries no one would miss. I took more night shifts. Anna picked up extra bakery hours when the morning crew called out. Lily got used to falling asleep to the sound of my keys at 2 a.m. I tried to be quiet, and failed. She'd sit up and whisper, "Hi, Papa," and I'd melt right into a chair. I told my parents the facts, not the totals. I asked for help with logistics, not cash. "Could you do school pickup on Thursdays?" I asked. "Maybe," Mom said, like I'd offered her a chore. "We have choir," Dad said. "Thursdays are my poker nights," Evan said. "I'm slammed." Which meant he was not. Meanwhile, Evan kept pivoting. He sold vintage shirts online. Managed a friend's band for 3 weeks. Consulted on a food truck. He moved back home because rent is a trap. He'd call me late at night. "How do you talk to credit card companies?" I told him. He said, "You're a lifesaver." And then, inevitably, didn't do the thing I told him. Small humiliations piled up like dirty dishes. Mom asked if we could keep Lily's situation private because not everyone understands adoption or medical stuff. Dad rolled his eyes when I corrected him for saying real parents about Lily's birth parents. Evan posted a photo of Lily on his Instagram without asking, captioned "Uncle Life," with a heart emoji trio. When Anna asked him to take it down, he said, "Relax, it's just a pic." I let too many things pass because I picked my battles the way a poor person picks apples, carefully, with an eye to bruises I couldn't afford. Then the first big bill hit. Insurance denied a test because the specialist had the wrong code next to his name. I called. I waited. I stayed polite. It got fixed. The second bill was a deductible. The third was a mystery charge that turned out to be the fee for having a cardiologist read a scan their own machine produced. I paid what I could, planned for the rest, and told myself, "We are okay. We're doing it." Then the envelope. The binder. The address I didn't know. I asked my parents the next day. Not a text. I drove over between fares and rang the bell. Mom opened the door with that look that says, "We weren't expecting a pop-in, but we're dressed for it." I held up the binder. "What's this?" Dad came down the hall, his glasses in his hand. He saw the papers. He didn't even pretend. "We helped your brother," he said. "How much is helped?" I asked, my voice tight. Mom said, "That's not the point." "What is the point?" I demanded. "The point," Dad said, slow, like he was explaining a drill to a rookie, Is that Evan is starting his life? He needs a foundation. I stared at him. We asked you to be at a doctor's appointment, and you said choir? Mom's mouth pinched. We're doing what we can. I said it then. Softly, because I still believed softness would help. Lily needs surgery this year. Mom looked at the kitchen clock. Dad looked at his coffee. We'll pray, he said again. Prayer is good, I said, my voice rising slightly. Action is better. Mom's eyes cooled. We've done enough for you. There it was. The invoice for being their child. Evan arrived mid-conversation with a bag of takeout, saving us from saying anything truly honest. He saw the binder and grinned. You saw, he said. It's not a mansion, just a start. Congrats, I said. It tasted like aluminum. Later that week, we were invited to Sunday dinner again. The one with the roast chicken and the quiet TV anchor. I went because I still believed in the power of showing up. They gave me a line to hold. I took it. But I was done with that now. The thing that broke me wasn't the purchase. It was the sorting the sentence. She's adopted. And the add-on. Not fully family. It was the scale in their heads where blood weighs more than time. Where a signature on a deed matters more than a signature on an adoption certificate. A family that uses the word blessing, like a coupon. I left that dinner with a decision. Heavy and simple. The kind that clicks into place like a seatbelt before the crash you no longer plan to prevent. Last night's dinner started normal. Mom asked about fares, like it was still 1998 and cash was king. Do people even take taxis anymore? Dad asked, like I might say. Oh, we stopped last week. Evan scrolled and laughed at something that only existed on his phone. Anna stayed home. We agreed one of us would keep Lily's bedtime on schedule. I brought a folder. I knew I'd need props. People like my parents respect paper. When plates were mostly empty, and the TV anchor's silent mouth looked exhausted from all the news he wasn't allowed to tell us, I set the folder on the table. I took out 2 pages. This, I said, tapping the first, is the hospital's estimate for Lily's surgery. Then I tapped the second. This is a photo of her from last week, riding a carousel. She's holding cotton candy like it's a diploma. Mom flinched at the picture. Dad leaned back. Why are you making a scene? I'm making a point, I said. Evan squinted. Dude, why? Bring that here? Because here is where the math fails. I said. Here is where you told me last week that Lily is not fully family. I want you to look at her face while you say it again. Mom shook her head. We never said that. You did, I said steady. Dad said she's adopted. You said not fully family, son, if we're being honest. I kept my voice low. I wasn't there to perform. I was there to set terms. Dad huffed. You're twisting us. No, I said. I'm translating you. Evan finally put his phone down, like something serious had actually started. We're all stressed. He offered. Money makes people weird. This isn't about money, I said, looking him dead in the eye. It's about hierarchy. It's about how you decide who counts. Dad's face got that hard look it gets when the lawnmower won't start. We helped your brother buy a house because he needs stability. You have a place. You're fine. We rent above a pharmacy. I shot back. Fine is not the measurement. Need is. Mom's eyes welled with those shiny tears she can summon for any crisis, including not being the center of a conversation. How can you talk to us like this in our home? Because this is where you talk to me like I'm an ATM who forgot his pen. I said. I'm done. Dad leaned forward, elbows on the table, voice low and sharp. Careful. I leaned back. No. The word hung there, stark and solid, like a new picture on a blank wall. I'm setting boundaries, I said. I should have done it 20 years ago. Here they are. We will pay for Lily's surgery ourselves. We will not take money from you if it comes with the price tag of disrespect. We will not co-sign anything for Evan. We will not be your emergency contact when a project fails or a pipe bursts or a credit card needs a clean name. Mom covered her mouth like I'd cursed. I hadn't. I was being cleaner than I'd ever been. Dad's jaw moved, like he was chewing nails. You're ungrateful. I'm awake, I said. Evan tried one more time to be the hero. Bro, why are you burning bridges over a misunderstanding? Misunderstanding would be saying the wrong thing. I said. You said the real thing? I finally believed you. Mom sniffed. We didn't mean she's not family like that. We meant it's different. Different how? I pushed. Different like you don't see her? Different like you get to opt out when it's hard? Different like you can buy a house for one child and tell another his child is a footnote? Dad pushed back his chair. The legs scraped loudly. Get out. I will, I said, standing. My knees felt weirdly light, like the air itself had changed in the room. But hear me first. I looked at both of them until they stopped moving. This isn't about revenge, I said. This is about closure. No one spoke. Even the refrigerator seemed to hold its breath. I'm closing the account where I pay with my silence. I continued. I'm closing the door where you come into my home with conditions. I'm closing the loop where Evan messes up and I fix it. You can call it cruel. I call it parenting my own family. Mom whispered. If you walk out, don't come back asking for anything. I won't, I said. And I won't come back to explain adoption to people who use it as a way to grade a child. Evan reached for humor and missed spectacularly. 4th of July is gonna be awkward. It'll be quiet, I said. I gathered my papers. I put the photo of Lily back in the folder. I left the estimate on the table. You can keep that, I said. It's what respect costs. We're paying it. I walked to the door. Mom said my name, the way you call a dog who's about to bolt into the street. I didn't turn. I opened the door. I stepped into air that felt like air. The first thing I did when I got home was hug Anna, longer than usual. She pulled back, looked at my face, and just nodded, like she understood everything without a single word. Lily was asleep. Her chest rose and fell in a rhythm I knew I would never take for granted. The next morning, my phone started its performance. 7:12 a.m. Mom. We should talk about last night. You overreacted. 7:16 a.m. Dad. Return the spare key. 7:17 a.m. Dad again, and the drill emoji. 7:25 a.m. Evan. Dude, yikes. Mom's a wreck. 7:26 a.m. Evan. Just say sorry. 7:41 a.m. Unknown number. Family meeting tonight 6 p.m. And Barb. She loves committees and potato salad. I put the phone face down. I made Lily's lunch, turkey sandwich, apple slices, a note that said, "You are brave." I drove my morning airport run, pretending not to hear my phone vibrate like a trapped bee. At noon, I called the hospital billing department to confirm the payment plan we'd set up weeks ago. The one I kept telling myself was a parachute, not a curse. The woman on the line had a voice that sounded like warm socks. We can start at $400 a month, she said. If anything changes, you call me. We don't send people to collections without trying to help. I wrote her name down. I said, thank you, like she had invented the concept of kindness. At 2 p.m., Mom called. I answered because I wanted the right kind of fight. The one where you show up and say your lines clearly. I don't understand how you can be so cruel. She started, her voice thick. I'm not being cruel, I said. I'm being clear. But we're your parents. You are, I said, cutting her off. You're not my judges. And you don't get to downgrade my daughter to make your choices look better. Silence. Then the sigh that means she's collecting tears for later. Your father is very upset. He'll live, I said. So will we. By evening, the family chat looked like a bulletin board for a small-town drama club. And Barb. We must set aside differences. Cousin Jess. Blood is thicker than water. Uncle Pete. Kids today are so sensitive. My cousin Ben DM'd me separately. Proud of you. I've got a spare AC unit if you need one. I sent him a heart. I muted the main chat. At 6:03 p.m., there was a knock like a landlord's. I checked the peephole. Dad? I opened the door with the chain on. He held up the spare key like a witness holds up an exhibit. Returning this, he said. He put it on my palm. It was warm from his fist. You'll be back when you need something. I need you to stop saying that, I said. His mouth tilted. We'll see. I closed the door. I put the key in a drawer with batteries and rubber bands and other things that are useful but not urgent. The next day, Evan called 12 times. I answered on the 13th because curiosity isn't a virtue, bro. This is getting out of hand, he said, his voice whiny. Mom didn't sleep. She'll sleep tonight, I said. Try chamomile. He laughed like I was being funny on purpose. Seriously, you know they didn't mean it like that. They're old school. Old school is for music, not ethics. I countered. You really going to ice us out over a sentence? It wasn't a sentence, I said. It was a policy. He exhaled, frustrated. Whatever. Can you come by Saturday to look at the inspection report? The house has some weird wiring. Dad says you know this stuff. No, I said. A beat. No. No, I repeated. Hire an electrician. He hung up without saying bye. Progress, in a way. He used to believe I was an appliance. That week, I made a list titled New Rules. I wrote them on an index card and stuck it to the inside of a cabinet, like a restaurant's food safety certificate. No loans, no co-signing, no emergency rescues, one channel of contact, email, no late-night texts, no drive-bys. Any visit requires respect for Lily. One comment, and the visit ends. Anna saw it and kissed the top of my head. I like this Mark, she said. He's boring in a brave way. We told Lily a kid version. We're taking a break from Nana and Papa, I said in the car after school. Grown-up feelings got tangled. She was quiet for a minute, thinking, like she does with her whole face. Is it about me? She asked, her voice small. No, I said instantly. It's about how we protect our home. Do you still love them? She asked. I love us more, I said. That's what dads are supposed to do. She nodded, satisfied. Can we get ice cream? We got ice cream. She picked rainbow sprinkles. I picked chocolate, because sometimes you say yes twice. The date came, July 18th. I wrote it in the calendar in big block letters. We built a plan like a bridge. Neighbor on call for the cat. Anna's coworker on call for bread deliveries if she needed to bow out. My boss approved time off. The night before, I lay awake and counted the tiny sounds the apartment makes in the dark. The radiator's hiccup. The upstairs neighbor's chair. Lily's soft, steady breath. At the hospital, Lily was braver than anyone. She asked the anesthesiologist if the mask came in purple. It didn't. She accepted teal. She squeezed my fingers like a code. I squeezed back. In the waiting room, I sat under a TV that showed daytime court shows and tried to remember how to breathe. The surgeon came out 4 hours later with a face that just said, "Good news." He said the words. I heard them like water. I sent one email to the family address I'd made. Surgery successful. Recovery going well. We will update when we're ready. My mother responded with a prayer hands emoji and, so glad. When can we visit? My father wrote, let us know if you need anything. Evan wrote, proud of you, bro. I closed the email and went back to Lily's room, where the machines beeped in a language I was learning to not fear. Recovery was slow. And holy. We measured meds and naps like ingredients. Anna kept a notebook with times and doses. I tracked Lily's steps to the bathroom like they were miles. Friends came with casseroles and carpool offers. Our upstairs neighbor, Mrs. Shah, left a bag of books and a note that said, "We're here." I cried at the sink when no one was watching. I cried at the sink when Anna was watching. She put my head against her shoulder and said, "Let it out. We'll refill." My parents texted every few days with questions that felt like inspections. Is the scar big? Will there be restrictions? When is she back to normal? I answered when I felt generous, and ignored when I didn't. Generosity is a resource. I treat it like money now. 2 weeks later, Mom tried a different angle. We made extra lasagna. She wrote, "Can we drop it off?" I said, "You can leave it with the doorman downstairs." We don't have a doorman. It was my way of saying, door stays closed unless your hands are empty of conditions. Evan posted a photo of his new backyard with a caption about hard work paying off. He tagged a grill brand. I didn't look long. I don't need to feed the part of me that counts someone else's blessings and calls it theft. I fed my daughter soup instead and watched her fall asleep with the sticker from the nurse still on her shirt. 3 weeks out, Lily wanted the park. We went. She walked slow, like the world had become a place you taste. She climbed the small slide and sat at the top, king of something gentle. "Watch me," she said. I watched. She slid. She laughed like a window opening. That night, I made another list. Titled, "What Changes?" I stopped explaining adoption to people who use it to rank love. I stopped taking calls that start with, "Do you have a minute?" and end an hour later with me fixing a problem I didn't create. I save money like respect, automatically, before anyone else can ask for it. I let silence be an answer. I slept. Real sleep. The kind where you wake up and the world doesn't feel like an unpaid bill. What would you have done if your family treated you this way? Have you ever had to draw a really hard line to protect the people you love most? Tell me what you think in the comments. I really want to know.